Hello, and welcome to month 2 of our 2023 block of the month. And this month we're going to be doing this block here. You can see the center of it on this finished block. And I'm going to have that there just to use as a reference. And then we're going to go ahead and lay out our block that we can actually sew together. So, all right, we're going to lay it out first. And the first thing I'm going to do is the center. And I'm just going to kind of put things where they're supposed to go. Make sure I have all my pieces cut. I've got some half square triangles to make this time. We're going to put the red ones closest to the center. Then the blue. Red, red, blue, blue. And then after we make the half square triangles, we'll add those to our layout. So I'm going to go ahead and just stitch together sections to make like little subunits. So we'll do this little 9-patch center block, and then we can join those two pieces to make the side blocks. And then we'll also have some half square triangles. So let's go ahead and do some sewing. Okay, and I've drawn a line on the back of my lighter colored square, corner to corner, and then I'm going to pair those with a dark navy and right sides together. And we're going to stitch on both sides of that line. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Oh, actually, I want to go. Okay, and then I'm going to clip that one off, and now we can use a rotary cutter, or just I'm going to use some scissors, and we're going to cut on that line that we drew. And this is inside our quilt, so it doesn't have to be perfectly straight or anything like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and just start piecing some of the center unit. And then I'm just going to clip off anything there at the back, and we'll cut this one. So we'll save those for when we go press. And then I'm just going to line up these pieces. And they're both square, so I'll just make sure all the sides match. And you could, there's different ways you could do this checkerboard block. I like to sew little squares together, so I don't mind cutting them out and putting them together, but you could do a strip piece set. But since we're just making a little one for this center and then one for the other block, it's kind of fun to sew with a bunch of little pieces sometimes. So and then I'm doing 2 where it's blue, white, blue. And then 1 where it's white, blue, white. So we'll get those done. Okay, I'm going to clip off some of those. And then I'm also going to join, while we're here at the sewing machine, do these blocks. Okay. And I think I will try to join these little pieces here for our center. I'm just kind of finger pressing, and I'm going to finger press the seam to the blue piece on each row. And then they should just nest together so we can line those up. And then after we get a bunch of these done, then we'll go do a little pressing, and we'll lay the block out. Okay, get those lined up. Very good. Okay, and I'll just press this a little bit to get it out of the way, and then add this last one on here. Okay, so now we can go press all of our pieces. Okay, we'll go ahead and do some pressing, and I'm just going to set that seam there. And then press it from the front. Set that one. And I like to just roll the seams back with my fingers first. They're heavily starched, so they do a pretty good job of staying where I put them. And then that way I know I don't have any little puckers or anything in there. And then where I joined the block together on the top and bottom rows, I'm just going to press that seam open just so it lays a little bit flatter. Whoops, then it flipped. Okay, and then I'm just going to scooch that over and put a clapper on there to help keep that nice and flat. And then we'll do the half square triangles. And on these, I'm going to press towards the darker piece. And I'm just heat setting it first, rolling that seam back, and then giving it a little press. And we got 4 of those. And then they're made a little bit oversized, so then we can trim them down so that we have a perfectly sized block where the seams are exactly in the corners. So we'll do that in a minute. And then we'll just go ahead and press these as well. These are those little side units, and I'm just going to set all the seams. And on this one, I'm just pressing everything to the red. Okay, I'm going to lay those out of the way for a moment. And then let's trim up these blocks. And so I've got a little rotary, well, a mat that spins. And I'm using a block lock, but you can use any ruler to get the size that is listed in the pattern. And we're just taking off just a teeny tiny amount, like less than 1/8 of an inch on each side. And when I'm doing half square triangles, I do like to make them a little bit bigger and then trim them down. I do like to trim all 4 sides. I feel like I get a good, nice, even, flat block that way, and I'm trimming off the little parts that stick out all at once. But you can, if they're pretty close to size and they're fairly straight, you could just position your ruler on there so that you just are trimming 2 sides. And I use these spinning mats, but then I forget that I have a spinning mat, and I usually just rotate the block. What is handy about these block locks rulers, they have that groove in there, so I kind of just slide it, and then I can move that ruler itself, and it spins everything and keeps it oriented how it's supposed to go. So, okay, and this is our last one here. Okay, so we've got all those trimmed up and get all of our little pieces. So you can see we didn't trim hardly anything off, but it does just make them a little bit neater. And we'll take our clapper off. That looks good. And then we're going to go ahead and just put our block back together, just how we would be building it. Okay, it goes like this. And then this block is kind of fun because it is actually a churn dash block. So if you flip these around, you can see that churn dash pattern. So it's one of my favorite blocks. I tend to kind of put it in just about everything that I make because it's kind of fun. And if we turn it this way, it kind of makes that ring and it mimics our floating circles. So just kind of a neat little design feature there. So, all right, let's go ahead and we're going to sew this together into a 9 patch. Let's sew these together. I just picked up 2 of the bottom pieces in the bottom row, and I'm going to line them up and then stitch a 1/4 inch seam. And then I'm kind of just going to chain piece them, leave them in there, and then grab my next pieces. This is from the center section. I'm going to line that up. And the top row. Okay. And then I'm just going to kind of finger press. And on these, I'm going to do the center section. I'm going to press that away from the center, so towards the red. So then on the block underneath of it, I want to again press towards the red. So I'm going to make my seam go this way. Okay, and then grab the next part to finish off the bottom. Again, I'm going to press this towards the red and grab this one. Finish off the center. Okay, just do a finger press on those. and then I'm just going to go ahead and continue sewing them together. But you may find it useful or helpful to go ahead and press those before you stitch everything together. But I kind of have it set up there where my seams then should just kind of lock into place. And definitely pin it if that helps keep everything held into place better. Okay, we're just gonna flip that up a little bit. Looks good. Get the bottom one added on, and then our center will be done. And then we're gonna go ahead and add that little border to it. Okay, we'll take a look at that so far. Okay, looks good. I am going to press it before I add on the other border, so just so it lays a little bit flatter. Okay, and then we're going to add our sides to the block and then finish off with the top and bottom. So we'll do these first. Okay, we'll give that a final press and then add our circle to it to do our applique. Let's get this ready for the applique to do our circle. And I just want to point out again, there's a little difference in the blocks. So this block has the white outer points, so you can actually see the square block within that border. And then this one here, we put the darker matching coordinating fabric of the border, so it kind of looks like that's floating. So when we do our circle, again, we just get that circular effect. So make sure you have the one, and you can do it either way, is totally fine. It's just kind of how this one is designed to have that blue just look like a going in a floating circle. So, and I'm gonna just eyeball this, get this centered on there best I can. I'll do a little measuring to see where everything falls and I can kind of see through, so I'm just doing a quick little check just to make sure. And this one, there's a big section of navy here on the corner that's going to be floating, so, and it needs to go up just a little bit. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to add a few pins to that so that everything stays where we want it to be. Nothing will shift. And I'm just going to pin on the inside so that I'm able to go ahead and stitch on that drawn line there to make our circle shape. Okay, and then we can go ahead and go stitch. Okay, I have my open toe foot on so that I have good visibility. I can really see the middle of that line that I'm going to stitch on. And I have a navy thread on the top, and I actually think this one I didn't even check my bobbin. I just have a white bobbin in there, and that's going to be fine. And I'm kind of just going to hold those threads to the side, and we're going to start off with just a little bit narrower straight stitch and stitch right on that line. Okay, and then I just overstitched it and pull up my needle, and then I'm just going to go ahead with my scissors and cut 1/4 inch away from that stitched line. I'm going to take these pins out though first so I don't poke myself. That would be bad. We don't want to get blood on our quilts here. Okay. And get my scissors, and then I'm just going to trim approximately 1/4 inch away from that stitched line. Okay, and then we're going to cut our slit in just the interfacing. So pull that interfacing. I kind of just pinch it a little bit and pull it away from the block. Make sure it's not anywhere close so that you just have it kind of up like that. And then I'm just going to make a little cut right there. And then again, I'm just going to hold it, the interfacing, away from the block. We do not want to cut into our fabric, just the interfacing make that just a little bit bigger. And then we can go ahead and turn it and shape it. Okay, I've got our block set here, and you can see the holes that I've cut into it. And now I'm going to gently, gently, gently just push that fabric through that hole, and we're going to turn it right side out. So it's just a real gentle hand because you don't want that interfacing to tear. Okay, and then I'm just going to gently pull this out to kind of pop that seam a little bit. And I'm just using my hands and fingers inside there to pop it out. And I'm going to kind of just work all the way around the block because we want it to lay nice and flat. Okay, and then I've got my point turner, and we want to make sure to push those out a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to stick my point turner into this narrow end here, into my slit, into the interfacing, and then I'm going to push it over to the seam. I'm going to make sure that the turner is between the seam allowance and the front fabric of the block. I do not want it to be sitting where it's pushing on that interfacing because it'll poke a hole right through. So underneath that seam allowance and between the fabric, and then I'm just gonna kind of work it around, smoothing that out, making that circular shape. I'm working it kind of between my fingers and just pushing a little bit, but again, be very gentle in there so that we're not ripping that interfacing. And that's going to give us a really nice finished edge on the front of our block where we're going to applique it. And I did have all of my fabrics starched pretty well before I started, and that has helped. It's made a difference to help get everything kind of goes into place a little bit better. And I like my results a little bit better having those starched. Okay, so now I'm turning it so the block is fabric side up now, and I'm going to press it real good, just making sure that that interfacing is not showing along the outside of the block edge. And I'm kind of pressing from the center out and just working around that curve. Okay, that looks good. Now we're going to get our white piece that's a little bit oversized, and I'm just going to do a little press on the ends closest to the outside of the square to mark the center sections. And this is an oversized piece, so it doesn't have to be exact. We will trim it down to the exact size, having it exactly centered, but this just kind of helps us get it a little bit close. And I'm kind of just making sure that I've got the same amount on each side. And here's that center line, and I can kind of visualize that it's going through there. And then my sides, I'm gonna, again, just kind of visualize a line going from those points. And that looks good. So let's put a few pins in there to hold it in place. Now you could do like a applique glue where you pulled it back and just put a little bit of glue on there. But since this is pretty heavily starched and I've got this interfacing that I've left in there, it's just a lightweight leave-in interfacing. It kind of just sticks to the fabric and it's really not shifting that much, so I'm okay with just putting a few pins in. And then I don't have to worry about it going turning or puckering but I'm just trying to get it as flat as possible on there. Okay, I'll put one more pin in, and I'm putting my pins in so that they're kind of on the inside so that I can just go ahead and stitch all the way around the outside without really having to stop. So let's go stitch it. I have a little tail of my threads here that I've left hang out, and I have my navy coordinating thread on top, and so I'm just going to kind of hold that in place. I've chosen a ladder stitch or a blanket stitch that I'm going to go ahead and use to attach and do the applique. And I'm just going to let that get started and then just gently turn and stitch, just going around that curve. And if you need to stop and pivot, go ahead and do that. One thing that was helpful on this machine, I took a photo of my settings. So with this blanket stitch, you can change the length and the width of the stitch to make it further apart, closer together, to have it come in, you know, longer into your applique piece. And so when I found the setting that I like, then I took a photo of the screen so I know exactly which stitch I picked. Here's a little sample that I stitched out ahead of time, and you can see where this one is a lot of, it almost like back stitched on it, and I didn't want that much thread, so I just picked one that was just a one thread over and back, and so then I just kind of played around with it until I got the spacing and the length that I liked on it. But now since I found one that I liked, I don't want to forget that when I come back to do my block next month. So by taking a photo, then I'll just have easy access, or write it down. Go ahead and write it down on the pattern, what you went and put your machine settings on, or if you did a zigzag, or if you straight stitched it. Or you could do each block a little different. That'd be kind of fun too. You could do different thread colors. Just have fun with it. All right, I'm going to finish stitching this, and then we're going to trim it up. Okay, we're going to go ahead and square this up, and I'm using this larger oversized ruler that has places where you can mark a little hole or put a little dot in there. It kind of has lots of guidelines on it just to help get things centered inside the block, but you certainly don't have to have it. You can just use rulers in your mats and find the center point and measure so far out. Again, it is helpful to draw with a pen or pencil first on the lines before you cut it, because you can only cut it one time and it's done. But if our lines aren't where we want them, we can make adjustments before we start cutting fabric. So okay, we'll take that off. And then we're going to take our ruler, and I'm going to draw that line matching up those points. Okay. Okay, then I'm just going to take a look and just kind of see if I've got the same amount on all the sides, all the way around. And that actually looks pretty good. I'm happy with the placement. So then I'm going to put my ruler back on there, the straight one, and just go ahead and trim off those little pieces and kind of square up the block. And then this one is done. And here now I'm just cutting right on that line that I drew so that my block is exactly the size we need it to be. Okay. All right, there's our applique block and our square bordered block. So that completes month 2. Thank you.